and just been always an honor to work with Stephanie. I helped write her nomination for the APSI Empower Award that she received in Galveston this past year. It was an easy thing for me to do because she is a person who easily empowers others. She has a non-anxious presence, a wonderful sense of humor, and she truly transformed how we did annual events with her leadership. So it's something very easy for me to do to write that recommendation. Wondering how many of you growing up had ate the alphabet Campbell's vegetable soup? Did you ever do the with all the letters in it? So it was always a fun thing for me to do as a kid, is to eat that and see if anything ever we spelled words that you could spell right. So when I think of Stephanie, I think of that alphabet soup, because she is dealing with all different organizations that have all different alphabetical letters, right? APSI, POAM, all those, which she's going to tell us about. So I think of alphabet soup when I think of Stephanie and all that she's juggling. So if you don't mind, when you don't realize how much you talk and you talk alphabet letters, I'm going to say, well, raise your hand and say, right, tell us what all those letters mean. Because she's in a new position with the denomination, coordinating 5 organizations and just is breathing new life into what's going on for faith formation. And we are so excited to have Stephanie. So let's give her a warm welcome.
Thank you, Anne. I am very excited to be with you all this morning and excited to invite you into a conversation about faith formation and how faith formation, you can expand your view of faith formation. And when we do that, we'll talk about how the national office can support you. We'll walk through resources. But first, I want to tell you a little story of how the Office of Christian Formation came to be. And that is, a couple of years ago, we were working in our siloed offices. And by we, it wasn't me at that time, but there was a collegiate office, a Ministries with Youth office, there was a Christian education office, curriculum, and things had been going along like that. And the decision was made to restructure, because we never do that at the Presbyterian Mission Agency. But that provided an opportunity to collapse these offices into the Office of Christian Formation. And more than that, when we did that, we said faith formation happens in a variety of contexts. It happens over the span of a lifetime, and we don't do that in our silo alone in Louisville, Kentucky, at the Presbyterian Center. We do that in partnership with the organizations that Anne talked about as well. So our new iteration of the Office of Christian Formation, I hope, can give you a jumping off point for how you think about faith formation in your own context, how it doesn't always just happen in one class on a particular day for a particular amount of time once a week, and that you can check Christian education off your list, but that faith formation happens in a variety of ways. So for your lunch today, and this slide will stay up, I'm going to invite you to have this table talk while we get started eating, and then partway through lunch we'll present again. But I'm going to ask you to share about a significant faith formation experience from your own life. And as you share, think about where were you when that happened, in what context. Were you in a worship service? Were you at a retreat center? Were you in another country? It does not have to be a box, the God box experience. It can be anywhere in your life. Who was present and why was it impactful? So if you'll begin to share that around your table, I think that'll set us up for a conversation about faith formation and how we can expand our view of it. So we're going to now prepare ourselves with Come to the Table.
So if you'll get a hymn book, if you don't know that, it's hymn 507. And Omar is going to teach us how to sign Come to the Table. Usually this is a great communion song. We're going to use it as come to our table of fellowship and all those good things.
So I invite us to do verses 2 and 4 and 5. The only reason I chose those 3 is because those are the signs that I know. So. Theological rationale. So we have come to the table of peace. Clap your hands and smooth it out. So come to the table of peace. This is God's table. It's not yours or mine. Come to the table of peace. And most of those words or most of those signs are repeated, but then we have come to the table of hope. Like waving at your hands or playing a musical instrument. Come to the table of hope. This is God's table. It's not yours or mine. Come to the table of hope. Come to the table of joy. Kind of fanning up the joy inside of you. Come to the table of joy. This is God's table. It's not yours or mine. Come to the table of joy.
Or you can sing it while you sign it, right?
Let us stand. Come to the table of peace. Come to the table of peace. This is God's table. It's not yours or mine. Come to the table of peace. Come to the table of hope. Come to the table of hope. This is God's table. It's not yours or mine. Come to the table of hope. Come to the table of joy. Come to the table of joy. This is God's table. It's not yours or mine. Come to the table of joy. Amen.
So if you would all be seated. As Anne said, this is usually sung at the communion hymn, but we are about to gather around table. Gather around table for fellowship, gather around table to hear new things, gather around table to be inspired. So let us go to God in prayer. Almighty God, we give you thanks for all who have gathered here today. And we look forward to this time together. We pray that as we share around table, that indeed we will be inspired and leave here with new words and insights to share. We give you thanks for the food that we are about to eat. And as we eat this food, we think of all the many hands in many, many places that have gathered and transferred and prepared. So we give you thanks for this food. Bless our time together. For it is in your Son's name we pray, and let all God's people say, Amen. So I'm going to invite you to come to the table. We have two different stratas today. The one with the red has turkey sausage, and the next one is a spinach strata. So as your taste directs you, enjoy the meal. And if you would please start.
So I'm going to suggest that we might do just a couple tables at a time rather than all of us just line up, right? So some of us that are sitting at the table might begin our conversations rather than standing in line. So are you seated there?
Yeah.
I'm going to let you go first.
Okay.
Your table, like maybe these two tables first. And then also help yourself to beverages on the other side.
Not at all. Sort of happened that way.
God's made.
There are some things.
And then we decided it's one if they don't understand faith.
As we all know.
Yeah.
So would you call that your faith
I was accepted in love.
leading those conversations, facilitating those conversations?
It may not like the only one, but God loves it.
It's just
And then doing our personal here with Margaret. Well, we were even though we're
I hope you had some wonderful conversation around your tables and that got your juices flowing a little bit about how faith formation happens. I should introduce my colleagues, Jason Brian Santos, myself, Stephanie Fritz, Jeannie Yeager-Buckley, and Brian Frick. So with the support of our mission specialist, Heather Leoncini, we are the Office of Christian Formation. And so I may refer to, yes?
Did you say that one of your last names is Fritz and one of your last names is Frick?
Yeah. So Brian Frick, yes, is, and I'm Stephanie Fritz, and I'm married to Brian Fritz, so that's fun. So, yeah, Frick and Fritz, there. And you may recognize different folks from different areas, and so I'll talk a little bit as we go along of what some of our areas are that we work with most, but I shouldn't continue until I've introduced them. So, where does faith formation happen? I'm sure there were different stories around your tables of how this where you had faith formation happening in your life, some significant experiences. I know at our table, we talked about how it might not have been a certain particular time or day, that it was something that was a process and that had to do with the community that we were in. So perhaps you had a faith formation experience in worship, where we all gathered together and where we'll talk about what intergenerational worship looks like and why we should gather together to worship in that manner. Our education classes. Faith formation certainly happens in, we talked about living the questions over here and how that expanded our views and how we can think about things differently and maybe in not such a literal manner. How many of the rest of you have had worship or education faith formation experiences? Is that something that happened for you? Service experiences. Often we hear that a particular experience on a mission trip, perhaps when you were a youth, perhaps when you were serving alongside your peers in the community, maybe at the food bank, maybe in Guatemala, across the world. Service experiences are often a touching point to where a faith formation experience happens. Peer groups are small groups, youth group, Presbyterian women. These are all places where we form what? What do we form in our peer groups and our small groups? We form relationships.
Close relationships.
And we form community. And how is it that our relationships and our community help form our faith? Did anybody have experiences that they shared that involved service or with your peer groups, youth group, that sort of thing? Great. Fellowship and special events. This event here today, a nugget that inspires you, that may form your faith. Do you have all church retreats that you've been a part of? Do you have an Advent celebration that you've been a part of? Significant experiences happen in those venues as well. And again, we're forming relationships and community. Leadership experiences. Has serving on session been a faith formation exercise for any of you? Anne mentioned that her and Pam and I served on the annual event leadership and with APSE, Association of Presbyterian Church Educators, before, and that was a significant faith-forming period of time for me. And so leadership can often be how we form our faith. In our homes. In our homes is where our faith is formed. That is the single most deciding factor of our young people today is how faith looks in their homes and how are we supporting that. And also in the community. Mr. and Mrs. Van Arsdale. My children went to Van Arsdale Elementary School growing up for all their elementary years. Mr. and Mrs. Van Arsdale were members of my Presbyterian church. And we were blessed to see them in the community of the elementary school almost on a weekly basis. Marty would read to the kids, Wayne would come in, they were adoptive grandparents, they visited all the classrooms. They spent a lot of time there. Wayne had been on the school board, and that's why the school had been named in his honor. He spoke at every single continuation for 6th graders. Marty and Wayne recently passed away, and their funerals were within a year of each other. They were in their mid-90s. And to see the community that gathered there, the generations of children and families that gathered for all of those years of Van Arsdale Elementary School. And it made me reflect on the last, through their sort of late 80s into their early 90s. Sometimes you would hear, I wish Marty and Wayne could come to this event. I wish that Marty could still come to her PW circle. I wish that Wayne could serve on this community. We only see Wayne and Marty in worship on occasion. But it made me reflect on the fact that they were out in the community. They were in that elementary school. And I wonder if that was how their faith was being formed at that particular time. So think about those that are within your midst that also have their faith formation experiences happening in their community. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about the work that we do and sort of walk you through some of the resources that you see on your tables as we think about faith formation and how we can support it. But it helps a little bit so that you know what's out there that can help you with your programmatic needs. So the Office of Christian Formation is part of Theology, Formation, and Evangelism. We call that TFE. And within that department, we have Theology and Worship. You have a Just Worship card on your tables for their next conference. We have 1,001 new worshiping communities. Are there any 1,001 worshiping communities in this area, in this presbytery? Been a part of a few of those. So that is part of our area. Vital congregations. I understand that this presbytery is going to be participating in vital congregations. So I did bring the toolkit, but I think that you all will be very much diving into this. So vital congregations is part of our area as well. And financial aid for service. How many of you know even what that is? Have you ever heard of financial aid for service? So that's a great resource that we have in our area. They offer student loans, they offer parent loans for college, they offer debt assistance for pastors serving in small churches, and they offer a great many grant opportunities, of which I'll talk about later. So that is who TFE is and some of the resources you can get from our area. Our office, Christian Formation, here is what we are about. Innovations in lifelong formation, intergenerational ministry through resources, staff and programmatic initiatives in our churches, and we include small and non-traditional churches. That's who we support. So we develop and we assess resources, leadership development for all sizes of congregations, camp and retreat centers, in our homes, in our community, and out in the world. And we partner with our Christian Formation Collective. So this is our name for the organizations, the 5 organizations that we partner with, and we'll talk about each of those. We work collaboratively with them, and we provide resources as they do the vital work in age and stage ministries. So as we reformatted our office, it was a General Assembly mandate that our small little office, you saw there's 4 of us, focus on intergenerational ministries. You might know that 63% of the churches in the PCUSA are small churches, under 100 members. And we believe that intergenerational ministry is a ministry of abundance and not scarcity, and that all sizes of churches can benefit from intergenerational ministries. We also know that we need to support our age and stage formation. And so how are we going to do that? Well, one of the ways in which we do that is to work through our Christian Formation Collective. So first, let's talk about intergenerational ministries. How many of you in your churches have some sort of intergenerational experience that goes on in the life of your church? So might that look like a worship? Is your worship intergenerational?
Yes.
Might that be a retreat? Retreat experiences? Might that be service?
Service,
Definitely. Okay. So we talk a lot with churches about what it means to be an intergenerational church, to be an intergenerational church, and the difference between that and how we have intergenerational experiences. And we find that that is extremely contextual. So one of the ways that we're doing that is to work with a cohort. So we currently have a cohort in Cascades Presbytery. That's our pilot program. And so we're offering coaching and teaching over a period of 18 months to this group of Presbyterian churches in Cascades Presbytery. And we talk a lot with them about what it means to become an intergenerational church and how they practice doing that. And so we practice becoming an intergenerational church by having intergenerational experiences and even intergenerational moments. So there's a lot of experiences that we all have where we all get everybody in the same room, and they're all there. And that's great because we all need to get in the same room somehow. But what does it mean when there's mutuality between the generations? What does it mean when you give and you receive? So I will tell you that what we have learned is that there is absolutely no magic pill or program, and I do not have a curriculum on that table for you to become an intergenerational church. And that is why we have looked towards coaching and cultivating conversation around this. I will tell you that it takes a very long time to shift paradigms in your church. And I will tell you that many of us in this room, in our office, out in our denomination, sometimes ask the question, why? Why do we need to do this? How many of you have had that question about intergenerational ministries? Why does this need to happen? Any answers? What are answers that you think about intergenerational ministries? Why do we feel like that is how faith is formed?
I think it creates a sense of belonging to the children, the generation that we generally call them, they are the future, but they're really the now with us, and they develop a sense of belonging to the now.
Belonging.
The shared learning.
And shared learning.
From one another.
Did anybody share an experience with one another where you were learning, had that shared learning relational experience with somebody from a different generation? So we know that this is it's a lot of hard work and conversation. And we've talked a lot about how we got to this place. Our churches were intergenerational once upon a time, and we sort of programmed ourselves out of that. And now we're not quite sure how to be together. And so there's a lot of things that we do that may seem counterintuitive because we need to learn how to be together again. So I encourage you, if that's something that you want to learn more about, that's definitely one where you'll take my card and send me an email, and we are positioning ourselves to have more coaching available and more cohorts beginning and more conversations. But that is not something I necessarily brought a resource for. But we are developing some resources for ancillary intergenerational experiences so that you can practice being together. So we have a short-term intergenerational mission toolkit that's going to be coming out, and talk about how we serve intergenerationally with one another. So working on that with World Mission. Should have that by the time we're at APSI in Little Rock. And we're also beginning a faith practices project. So let me tell you a little bit about faith practices. How many of you might practice some faith practices in your own personal faith life? Do you meditate? Do you take walks? Do you take a run? Okay, me neither. What are some other faith practices that you experience personally in your own faith life? Do you have some others that you might?
Every morning.
Oh, go ahead. Morning?
Every
Morning.
morning, going out on the porch and reading.
Reading.
The text and
Spending time with the Word? Great. What's another
I
one?
developed a garden, a new garden.
Gardening.
Mhm.
That's a great faith practice. Any others?
Well, you mentioned meditating, but prayer,
Mm-hmm.
yes, I think has to be added there too.
So what we're exploring in our office is that the thread that runs through all of our faith formation experiences are faith practices. And while there are many faith practices that we may practice on our own, that there are certain practices that we believe create a communal experience that grow our faith communities. That when you participate as a community of faith in storytelling, when you are sharing experiences with one another, when you're in service, on retreat, in prayer, when you are a Sabbath community and practice hospitality, that you're creating rhythms and ways to be together in a creating communal memory with these practices. So we've just begun this project. We've identified these practices as ones that we want to focus on. And in a little bit, the cute little card game on your table, we'll play that. That's our just fun way to introduce the practices. But we will be working on some resources for each of these practices. But as you reimagine what faith formation looks like in your communities, these are just something to think about. In your education classes, are you practicing storytelling with one another? What are your practices for hospitality as a community? Do the same things happen in your children's ministry as happen in your Presbyterian women group? How does your community form these practices together? So that's just my little hint towards something that we have coming. Okay, I'm going to move in now and just talk about some of the other things that our office does. So Presbyterian Youth Triennium, who has experienced or sent youth to PYT? So we just had a great big summer. Was anybody at PYT this year? Yay. 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 So our office does have put together Youth Triennium really to the gratitude and thanks to Gina Yeager-Buckley, who's done it for many, many years. But it is a significant faith formation experience in the time of our denomination. And one thing that I will say is that there were 1,000 adult volunteers at Triennium. And they come from many, many, many different walks of life. They might be retired, they might be youth workers, they might be the DCE, they might be a parent. And we took that opportunity to have interest groups and also a leader track at PYT. So PYT can be a fantastic faith formation experience no matter who you might be. So, air conditioning or not. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's kind of why they probably stuck you. So look for the next PYT. Our Christian Formation Collective. So these are our 5 partner associations. I'm going to reference you to a few websites as we go along. I have found that almost everybody tries to find things on pcusa.org. Has anybody tried to go to pcusa.org and tried to find stuff? Yeah. Don't do that. So I'm going to give you, I know, I don't know why. So if you want to learn more about each of the organizations, presbyterianmission.org/formation is the landing page for our pages. And the associations are there and the different things that we're doing. So I'll reference that a few times. So one of our partners is the Presbyterian Older Adult Ministry Network, POAM. And the resource that I have brought with you today to talk about POAM is their 2019 planning guide, older adult planning guide. There should be enough over at that table where many of you can take one, and if you need one mailed to you, I can accomplish that as well. How many of you are familiar with POAM? So we know that our congregations certainly have become a little bit older. And older adult ministries is a terrific way to support that. So some things that we're doing with POAM as an office is we're having a fall event with them and doing a small church think tank. So we want to hear about the particular struggles of small churches. So we're doing that at their fall event. We're also going to partner with them to develop a new website, and where maybe some of these resources aren't just in a bound up copy, but perhaps searchable on their website. So that is how we're partnering with POAM. Association of Presbyterian Church Educators, otherwise known as APSE. APSE's got some great exciting things coming that we're going to partner with them. So on your tables, you've got the Little Rock event brochure. You also have a little pin that you can take from APSE. So APSE is recognizing that they need to expand the network, that they need to reach educators that are serving in communities of color. They need to reach educators that are in small churches, volunteers, pastors. So we're working with them and the Diversity Task Force. We're providing an anti-racism training in a couple of weeks at Austin Theological Seminary. We have produced some grants for APSE through our financial aid for service. So there is a $10,000 leadership support grant that they've received. And brand new as of a few days ago, they received another $12,000 for scholarships for the APSE annual event. So definitely be looking towards that. If you want to attend the event, there'll be more funds available there. And then opening doors to discipleship. Is this something that any of you have ever been on before, this website? So opening doors for discipleship, you just have to Google it. Right now, it's sort of how it is. And it was used for Sunday school teaching, to teach about Reformed theology, and many of our certification folks used it. So APSE's excited that they are going to be given opening doors to discipleship, and we're going to partner with them to redevelop the content of this website. So what training resources might you all need and would be great to find on a website? What could you send your Sunday school teachers to? What could you send your youth workers to? DCEs, pastors. So we're very excited about this Opening Doors project that'll be coming up.
Stephanie, is the
Yes.
current website still protected? You need a code to get in, maybe?
Yeah, you have to set up an account. So you can get the code yourself. You don't have, somebody doesn't grant it to you.
Right.
But it does ask you to set up an account.
Okay.
So if there's some, if you want to explore it a little bit, but I would say within the next 12 months or so, there should hopefully start to begin to do new content on this site. Presbyterian Youth Workers Association, PYWA. Aren't you proud that I didn't even put the acronyms
There
in
you go.
there?
Yay.
We're partnering with PYWA. They are a fairly new organization. They've been around for a little while, but much of their support has come from our office. So we're trying to push them out of the nest. And so with that, we've given them a grant to support their executive director and working with them on board support and development. So we've got some great plans for PYWA. And then finally, Presbyterian Church Camp and Conference Association. Brian Frick, our associate, half of his job through special funding will always be camp and conference support, even though he's also a Christian formation associate. But we're excited about a lot of the things that PCCA has come up with. We're going to Cuba next year, Puerto Rico this year, with the Spanish-speaking camp directors and forming some partnerships. We're going to be offering curriculum support for the smaller camps that can't afford it. Board development, and we need to talk about UKirk, but we're going to talk about a special relationship between PCCA and UKirk, and some new marketing materials and support. So how many of you have faith formation experiences that happened in a camp and conference center? Right? So we believe that focusing on camp and conference centers, in our Office of Christian Formation is a really important core piece of many of our faith development experiences. So we're excited to strengthen those relationships. And then UKirk. Who's heard of UKirk? So UKirk is been a denominational organization. It was under the Christian Formation area, and within the last 4 weeks, they have formed their own. They're incorporated on their own. Their 501c3 paperwork has been submitted, as in 3 days ago. They're incorporated here in Texas, actually, through University Press. Okay. And formed a new board. We have given them grant support to hire an executive director, which they've done. And really they're just learning how to be UKirk. So UKirk Collegiate Ministries. UKirk is primarily a way that you can brand your college ministries. They do not have to be campus ministries, so collegiate ministries. So if any of you have a way that you would like to reach out to college students, you can have a UKirk ministry. So I encourage you to go to ukirk.org to find out more about how those ministries are. Some of the things that we're working on with UKirk is to develop a new website, their executive director grant, and also some new resources. So we're contracting with writers to develop how do you start a collegiate ministry, what are ways to fundraise with a board, that sort of thing. So you can watch for some of those new resources to come out for UKirk. Okay, so that is the Office of Christian Formation and all of the things that we support. Now, what we recognize in the Office of Christian Formation is that faith formation happens in many of our departments, in many of our agencies, and that we are sort of the clearinghouse. So you can come to that website I told you, presbyterianmission.org/formation, and you can start to see what other ways can you connect with faith formation resources. So obviously, publishing, right? So your curriculum resources. So Presbyterian Publishing is its own agency. Curriculum is no longer located in the Office of Christian Formation, but we're excited about some of the partnership that we have going with them. So PCUSAstore.com. This is their catalog of resources. I have 2 of these left because they have 2 of them left. All. So this was a kind of a popular, they realized this was a very much needed resource, but they're going to redevelop this catalog with their new resources and order more in 2020. So I just, you're welcome to look at these and look through the curriculum. I have curriculum samples over on the table there. How many of you have used Grace and Gratitude, Big God, Big Questions,
In Spanish also.
Present Word, and the Spanish materials? So we've really stepped up our translation into Spanish and Korean too, and there'll be more of that coming. So you can look through this for some of the curriculum samples, but you can also download the catalog on PCUSAstore.com. Point network. So my understanding is this particular Presbytery doesn't have a point representative, right?
Yeah.
So this is my commercial for Point. So here's one acronym I put up. Point is Presbyterians Organized in Nurture and Training. And if you have a point, somebody that's really interested in curriculum in this presbytery, that really believes in and would like to receive more training on our denominational curriculum, you can be a point representative. So please take my card and email me if that's something that you're interested in, and I will connect you with Katie Snyder. There's now 2 levels of point. You can be a member of Point, where you're going to receive updates and different things like that. And then the second level is you would like to go to the training that happens at the APSE annual event every year, and they're going to start also doing curriculum samples again. So once upon a time, they used to do samples, then they stopped, now they're starting again. So I encourage you to find someone in your presbytery that will be a Point representative. And we have some new collaboration projects with Presbyterian Publishing. Another General Assembly mandate was that it would be a really great idea if we worked together. Imagine that the curriculum and the formation office would work together. So we talked about practices. They're a part of that conversation. And we'll be looking for some materials that they can publish around practices. And we're also working on an intergenerational resource of some kind. So look for more to come. This is really, again, another restructure. Congregational Ministries Publishing, CMP, used to be in the Office of Christian Formation and now is with Presbyterian Publishing. So they're starting some fresh new programs. Any questions about curriculum and things like that? Like I said, there's samples here for Big God, Big Questions, for Grace and Gratitude, Present Word, and then there's also this catalog. Do you have any specific curriculum questions before we move on? I know that's a big area.
12:45, just.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, the different agencies and departments, and this is where kind of there's a whole bunch of stuff that's on your table and over at that table. Compassion, Peace, and Justice, which we refer to as CPJ in our peacemaking program. There's my Season of Peace stuff. So the Season of Peace is almost here. This is the 2019 Season of Peace Daily Reflections. I brought a few in packet form, but you can also download them. Here's a handout about what it means to be a peacemaking congregation. On your table, you can see a blue brochure that talks about what CPJ has. So the Season of Peace leads up to World Communion Sunday and is typically the month of September. There is great resources through Season of Peace. Peace cards, intergenerational peace fair. So if you go to the website that's indicated on there's little cards on your table too, then you can find all of the Season of Peace materials. World Mission. We have lots of resources here for World Mission today. This will tell you all the different areas in which World Mission operates in our denomination. Mission co-workers, your congregation can pray for and be a part of that. Young adult volunteers, YAV. And also World Mission puts out a lot of materials on what it means to have mission partners. So over on the resource table, there is a Christian Muslim toolkit. And I think, Tim, you took one, right? Did you want to? You already put it away, that's fine. So you could look at that over there. Tim had mentioned that there was a Muslim center. Yep. So we did that in partnership with one another. And then there's also a toolkit for mission, for short-term mission trips that you can take a look at. And as I mentioned, we have an intergenerational mission toolkit that is soon to come out. Racial Equity and Women's Intercultural Ministries is our other department. And they have a few materials over there on the table that you can take a look at. A few Bible studies. They come out with a publication called The Porch it might be quarterly. Presbyterian Women, who has circles in your congregation. So I understand that the newest Horizons Bible study is very, very good. Yeah, so I think you can look forward to finding out more about the PW study. Special offerings and the giving catalog. Are you congregations that participate in the Joy Offering, the Peace and Global Witness Offering, One Great Hour of Sharing, and the Pentecost Offering? So Bryce Wiebe and Special Offerings was very excited to give you lots and lots of things. So There is probably enough for everybody over there to get this jerry can curriculum that they have. And I want to say, well, so Jenna Campbell is your Scrapsy president, right? So some of you know Jenna. And she has been writing curriculum for special offerings for the last year. So over on the table, you can find this curriculum as well as a curriculum for each of the offerings. So what's great about those pieces is that as a congregation, intergenerationally and in worship, you can all focus on what those offerings mean. So what does it mean to participate in a Peace and Global Witness offering as a community? Not just to write your check, stick it in a little envelope in the pew, and put it in the offering plate. So I encourage you to take some of those materials for the special offerings. And then finally, our initiative on Matthew 25. So go to presbyterianmission.org/Matthew25. You can learn all about how to be a Matthew 25 church and what those initiatives are. Has anybody here looked at any of that material? So you can be a Matthew 25 church, you can be a Matthew 25 Presbytery. So, presbyterianmission.org. In the menu, you see programs and services. Click on that, and really anything that you see here, plus much, much, much more, is how you can find resources and materials for the PCUSA. So over on the PCUSA.org, I was not being very nice to that website, but there is one great resource over there that you can look at. Brand new, equip.pcusa.org. And this is the brand new training site for elders, for deacons, and for stated clerks especially. I believe there are some materials that you have to have a password for. So I think especially for stated clerk resources. So if you want to go to that website and take a look at all of the different things that they've recently, that the Office of General Assembly has come out with. I expect that this website will grow. It's a Moodle platform, and there'll be more materials on it. Okay, I think I got through most of the resources. Is there a question about anything else on your table? There's a lot of different departments. The point to kind of bring it all together is to say that when faith formation happens across a lifetime, when faith formation happens in worship, when faith formation happens in service experiences, and in community and relationship with, these are a lot of different resources that you can use to help support that. So, and in the next part, we'll talk about, this is great, y'all put this stuff out. Now, this is what we actually need. So I want to hear from you about what you actually need. So I'm here to talk to you about what we do have, and then we really want to hear from churches about what could support you in your faith formation resources. I did want to mention the Special Committee to Study Christian Education in the 21st Century. So that work has been going on now for 3 years, and it informs a lot of what you have seen here this morning. So the last recommendations went to the General Assembly in 2018, right? Yeah, 2018 General Assembly. And I want to just lift up to you that the General Assembly said intergenerational ministry is where we see faith formation happening in the 21st century. And so that is why we as an office have restructured to offer the support for intergenerational ministries while we continue to resource our age and stages. So that was a mandate that came from our General Assembly. They're continued to work on now, what does it look like to reframe certification, and what other training opportunities do our educators need? Are they volunteers? Are they pastors serving in small churches? How do they need to be trained and resourced? So you can look for their recommendations to come out for their continued work during the 2020 General Assembly. But that is something that our office staffs and supports as well. Okay. Woo! there's a lot of things. Would you like to play a game? And we're gonna play this game that's at your table real quick as we move into the next part.
Everyone gets 6 cards.
Everybody gets 6 cards. Yep.
And where do you buy these card games? Because I love it already.
So they're free, and I have some. Right now, we're not selling them because that's kind of like a pain. So we're giving them away. And then if I don't have enough, I'll mail them to you. But yeah, I have it. So this is a game that we developed called At Church. It's a game to highlight intergenerational ministry and to highlight faith practices. It is meant to be played as young as 4 or 5 years old. They know their colors and they can match symbols. You can play this game. So there's on purpose not any reading. And there's also a way to make up many of your own rules. But what we're going to do real quick is play a round of how to score it, and then we'll talk about different ways to know that you can implement it. So everybody has 6 cards. It's the highest scoring if you're matching the symbols. So as you do, don't get attached to these cards because you're giving them all away. But you are trying to collect matching symbols. The second highest scoring is to collect matching backgrounds. If you have this symbol, the little wild, don't hoard them. You can only use one. A little wild, a little rainbow. So definitely don't try to collect a bunch of those, but you use it once, that's your wild. Somebody might have the wild for, there's only one card that's the wild for colors, and that's the sloth with the rainbow. And there's only one of them, so you may or may not have that.
So is that a good thing to have?
Yeah. Okay, so the first thing you do is you keep one and pass 5 to your left. Keep one. I said don't get attached. Keep one card, pass 5 to your left, and then you have a new.
Do you want it on this action?
No, side to the camera, like that. Pass it to the left.
Oh, keep one, sorry.
And you look at your card.
Keep one, pass 5 to these.
So you're trying to get.
So keep them in your hand, it'll be easier.
Symbols or background colors.
Then you're going to keep 2 and pass 4. Keep 2 and pass 4. So now you're starting to make decisions.
Well, we're a little
It's
tired.
a lot easier to get through it and then you score it. You're just trying to know which.
Are we passing to the right or?
So then do we keep 3?
Keep 2, pass 4. Keep 2,
Keep
pass
2.
4.
I don't know what. I think we did that, right? We kept 2 and passed 4.
Keep 2, pass 4. Then you're going to keep 3, pass 3. Keep 3, pass 3.
No, those are the ones.
Oh my gosh, what's the beginning?
Then you're going to keep 4 and pass 2.
Hang on.
So now you're really making decisions. Remember that matching symbols are
Every time.
How many was that?
Keep 4, pass 2. Keep 4, pass 2. Some say it's a little bit like gym rummy.
You got like 2 different stages there.
Now you're going to keep 1, pass 5. What?
Keep making.
Sorry, keep 5, pass 1. Oh my gosh. Keep 5, pass 1.
Oh, it was
Need 6 cards at all times.
Okay.
Because everybody's going to pass you once. How many do you have? Okay.
At the very
So
last.
if you've all passed
So,
1,
Past 2, then pass 1.
now you should have 2. Should I start over?
ended up with
Then you should end up with 6. So this is your hand. So in the first round of scoring, you need to present one set of matching symbols. So the most
How
matching
many in a
symbols.
set?
However many you have,
So,
but you only get to
Stephanie,
present
when do you
one
get to use your
set.
wild card?
You can use your wild card now because that's symbols. But only one time.
Okay, 5.
If you have the color matching, your wild card.
Symbol for the wild card.
Matching symbols.
This is a wild card. Yeah, so you can turn your wild card.
But then this is different from
You don't have a match.
So you're only gonna be able to do that. I think this one's the wild card.
Okay, so however many you have times it by 3, that's your score. So if you have 2 matching symbols, you have 6. So you need to pick one of these. 9.
Can I put my wild card down?
One wild card.
Makes sense if it's
So does everybody know their score? Times that many cards by 3, so that would be.
We don't know what we're doing.
It's okay, you'll know after you.
So I've got 5 of these symbols.
You don't use your wild one.
No, I didn't know what I gave you. At one point I had 5 wilds. Okay, so I can't do this.
Yeah, so you can just put down 1 with the wild. Well, you're doing the symbols now, not the colors. Symbols first.
Symbols first, so.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're doing great.
so-
3, 6, 9, 12, 15. So your score is 15.
So 3 points. I don't even know.
So you have 6. Or 9, sorry. So you
So
times
all
it by
those
3.
can go together?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Let me see why they
So I
can.
can do.
So the next round, you're gonna present your matching colors.
Okay, Dave,
So
I'm
then the
putting something
background
here for you.
color. So all your blues or all your reds, whatever you have the most of.
Can we use the?
So we
And
grab
then the
them.
wild is the
No, I think
slot.
you're wild there.
Dan has the slot.
Can we
There.
use-
Do the wild color.
Well, you can do
So
rainbow.
if I have 3, can I add it to my red?
Doesn't matter. You use 4 reds.
Oh, so even though I used that already?
And yeah, doesn't matter.
Oh, duh.
Got it, yeah.
Okay.
So now you're matching
I'm
colors.
gonna be on your team.
And then you're timesing those by 2 and adding it to your previous score. So if you had 9 before, then you add 4 to your score. So you have 6, 8, 6.
All right.
So can I use that rainbow and this one?
Background. You can use this one.
But I can't use
That was a-
That was a symbol.
Yeah. Okay, so
For colors, it's multiplied by 2.
now you use that 6, add 6 to your score. Got it. Background colors. And then the last scoring round, it's easier once you know what all 3 scoring rounds are, is to do a fully unique hand. So as many cards that you can lay forward that do not match color and do not match symbol.
Oh, got it.
Because that is your hand that has the most generations interacting together. So this is a unique hand because the symbols or the background colors do not match. And those are worth 1 point apiece. So then you add that to your score.
He said no.
So the first round was matching symbols. The second round was matching colors. The third round was a unique set. So all of those directions are in your card set. Once you've done it one time, you can play a lot easier. Then you decide who has the highest score at your table, and that's who won. But the nice thing is then you can have, in your card deck, there's discussion questions. Here's some other discussion questions that we've made up, and you can make up your own. So once you've scored it, then you can sit around together as a group and say, okay, I had the most storytelling symbols. I'm going to share how my congregation shares personal stories with each other. Oh, I had the most prayer. And in your deck, it tells you what each of the symbols mean. So that's just another way that you can use it. In the rules, there are other discussion questions and other ways to play. So once you've done it a few times, it's like really hard to teach a group how to play a game, but once you've done it a few times and the directions are in there, you can all take home a deck. I have enough for everybody today, and you can work on it. So, yeah, good job. I know some of you are a little confused, but okay, we all are. All right. So your final activity today together is to discuss these questions. And the card at your table is to record some answers for us to take back. So this is our think tank part. So what are the challenges you face in your current model of providing faith formation ministries? And what resources would support your faith formation resources or ministries? So you're writing on your card things for me to take back. What sorts of support do you need?
Oh, boy.
First question, what are your challenges? Second question, what resources could you need to support?
In terms of ages or anything, and every other month they just go get a restaurant. So there's no structure to it other than that. Where just being on the outside looking in and seeing pictures and stories.
Doing fundraising.
That particular thing that you opened up the law, a half hour before and a half hour after the Wednesday midweek.
Sure began.
That's brilliant. It's good. Visit with family. There's no space, but many of our
Thinking it to
to do the old fashioned thing. That's back
Together as we close this morning, and just to say that the resources are here for you to take, so please take them. I don't really want to ship them back, so you can clear me out over there. Also, please take a card if you have really specific questions and you would like specific resources, and I can help connect you to those. I'm happy to do that. So as I hear the conversations around the room, I'm hearing specific needs about how do we talk about faith formation with our families? How do we talk about faith formation with our leadership? How do we get beyond faith formation being one particular time on one particular day for a particular amount of time? What does that look like? And so I think that's an ongoing conversation. There's not necessarily a magic bullet to that sort of thing, that it really is a continued conversation in your context, and to continue being intentional about faith formation in a variety of contexts. One last sort of closing thought, when I was serving in a church and the task force for whatever came to me and said, we need your numbers. We need to know how many people are doing this and how many people are doing that, and we want to see what success looks like. And I said, how about we look at numbers in a different way? And I said, I can tell you when I look at a roll, this was for families, when I look at a roll of these 75 families that participate in our church, I can tell you how each of them connect to a faith formation experience. And some of them connect to a Sunday morning Sunday school class. And some of them connect to this mission trip that we do every year. And some of them serve in our shelter. And some of them want resources at home. But they all are part of our community of faith. And so that sort of just expanded the idea that not all of our families in today's world, not all of our church members, no matter what age they are, their faith formation happens differently. And it happens differently for us across our lifetime. What we need when we're 7, what we need when we're 27, and what we need when we're 87, I told you the story of Wayne and Marty Van Arsdale, are all different places. And so sometimes I think that we put too much pressure on one program to work, because for some of us that's our job and that's what we get paid for, and for some of us that's our role, and some of us have had wonderful experiences in a particular area of faith formation, but that in today's changing church, our church will not look the same in 20 years and 30 years for sure. We know that for a fact. We don't know what it's going to look like, but we know it's going to look different. That God is not departing from us, and that God is not getting smaller. God is should be getting bigger in our view. And what do we do to create those experiences and to be intentional about naming those experiences for our folks? So it's a long, hard conversation that doesn't happen in a couple of hours on one morning, but I thank you for letting me come here this morning to just sort of start you thinking about different ways to think about faith formation. and different ways that our office is trying to encourage you to think about faith formation. So take resources, take my card. I hope that you have more questions now than when you came, so that you can, that is what I hope. I hope that you have many, many, many more things that you want to know. And I'm happy to sort of point you and connect you.
Thank you.
Go now from this place, remembering that we are all beloved children of God,
Yes.
that we are walking on holy ground as we teach, as we pray together, as we share our stories, and know that the love of Christ surrounds you. Amen.
Thank you for being here.